Okay, welcome to the Web Soil Survey Rule and Report Manager video. This is going to be a real lengthy video discussing the various aspects of the Rule and Report Manager. Before we go here, what I want to talk to you about is Web Soil Survey, because this is basically the intent of this manager software. So we're going to click on Start the Web Soil Survey, and we're going to create an area of interest. And you'll notice that we've got a series of thematic maps for both interpretations, as in this one, and also for properties. And so here's a property map for available water storage from 0 to 100 centimeters. And in addition to that, we've also got the soil reports. And so here's a particular, I'm going to click on the building site and the small commercial, and I'll view the report, and here's the report for that particular set of interpretations. And we also have the capability of coming in here and not only interpretations but also soil properties. We can identify particular interpretations for those properties, and all of this is tailored using the report manager. So think about this: as a state soil scientist, you have the capability of being able to develop a suite of manuscript reports and maps that are going to be created for your users in your state. So how do you do that? Well, the way you do that is by using the report manager, the Rule and Report Manager software. So this is an e-authenticated web page. That means that you have to log into the system. If you cannot access this, please contact the hotline staff, and they'll add the Web Soil Survey Rule and Report Manager to your e-authentication roles. And this will allow you then to come in here and to tailor the list of reports and to tailor the list of maps that are available. Many of you are creating new interpretations, and you're wondering, how do I put these interpretations up on Web Soil Survey? This is how you do it. Keep in mind, Web Soil Survey is an official USDA web portal, and as such, all of this work that's published to the Web Soil Survey has to go through a technical edit and an English edit. And you'll see some of the pieces and parts that have to go through all of this review process before it's actually published. But this software allows you the safe place to come in here and be able to test your ideas, test your theories, develop your reports, develop your maps, and have all of that information available so that when you are ready to publish this up to the Web Soil Survey, then all it is a simple click on tabs to be able to push it up forward. You'll notice that we've got these buttons up here, the navigational buttons that correspond to the URLs. So the reports allow you to design and test the reports. The soil data viewer rules allow you to configure the soil interpretations and soil properties for both soil data viewer and for Web Soil Survey. Then the other item that you may or may not touch is interps. This does not allow you to create interpretations using soil data mart data. This only allows you to design and test the property scripts that many of us use as derived statements in the NASIS reports. Well, you can also create those same property scripts and use those as derived statements in the soil data mart, the Web Soil Survey reports. The other items here is the service check. The service check just is basically a service check to make sure that the service is working. We have the legends, the soil data viewer map legends. Those are the different color ramps that we can define for the various types of maps that we create. And then we also have the SDV folders. Now this allows me to go in there and create a new folder for Web Soil Survey. And if you're wondering what folders I'm talking about, it's these folders that you see on the left hand side. That allows us to basically organize the maps and the reports. So let's go in and take a look at the reports And 'cause that's where most of you are going to be working, is the reports and the soil data viewer rules. Here's the list of the folders. And when you open up the report folders, you'll see that it has all of the reports that are listed for that particular folder. And you'll notice that, for example, recreational development uses the interpretations, and anything that is a national report is those reports that do not have a parenthetical state code at the end. This will allow your state soil scientist to come in here and create the reports based off of, in this case, the interpretations that you have already exported to Web Soil Survey. Keep in mind, you don't create any data. All what you're doing is using the data that's stored in the Soil Data Mart, and you're developing a report, or you're developing a map from that stored information. So let's go in there and take a look at something very simple. Let's go to building site development. Here's the national report. Here's two state reports. The interpretation report is extremely easy to develop, because the only thing that you change in a particular interpretation report is the interpretation itself. Now, we have some buttons up here. We've got the new button. If you really wanted to go out and create your own brand new from scratch report, you could do so. You have a save button. Remember, anytime you're making edits, you want to save that before you move to another type. So be aware of that. Save as new. You could come in here and change the name and the title of this particular interpretation report, and then you could save it as a new report, and we'll do that here in just a minute. You can close this out, and I can close that particular one out, and I can open up another report. Any edits that I made on that particular closeout would have to be saved before I closed it out. You can also delete these particular reports. So if you've gone in here and you've done a lot of editing on a report, and you say, you know, I really don't want to use this report, you can delete that report. And I would appreciate if you would use that. I do not want this to become cluttered like NASA's has with all these extraneous reports. So please take care of these folders. Make sure that you only are creating information that you are planning on publishing up to Web Soil Survey. This is for use by everybody, and you'll notice that these folders will get cluttered if you are not aware of the information that's being posted on here. So please take care and do not create extraneous reports. Delete those that you're not using. My approve button is your request for certification. And when you click on request for certification, it'll come to me, and I will verify that you have had a technical edit and an English edit on this before we push it up to Web Soil Survey. So that gives you a lot of capabilities of being able to come in here and test this information without having to impact Web Soil Survey. The minute you tell me you want this up on Web Soil Survey, that's when you have to be a little bit concerned, and we'll push this up to Web Soil Survey after we've verified that it does function the way it should. Every time you've saved it, you've set a point on that particular report. And if you came in here and made an edit that you did not want to save and you wanted to restore it back to the previous save point, then you can click on restore. It'll bring back that previous save report. You can run these reports in this environment, and before you run it, what you'll want to do is set the AOI, and your AOI option comes up. You can see that I've got mine set to Pennsylvania 001, and I've got 2 or 3 particular map units selected, and they will report out as an HTML format. And so I could actually run this particular report, and I can include the minor soils, or I can display. I'm just going to go ahead and take the default, and here is the results of that particular report. so you can see how quickly it runs. So back into the manager, let's talk about these tabs right here. These are the report tabs, and you got the general. The general is going to give you the name and the title of the report so that you'll know what it appears when you run the report. The report header notes, pretty standard for almost all interpretations, and this is an interpretation report. I'm going to show you how easy it is to modify an interpretation report. Here's your map unit selection required, and then use the include minor soils option. Now what does that mean? Remember when I ran this report it said include minor soils? That's what that tab means. And then because my AOI allowed me to put in particular map units, that was that map units selection required. And then you know this is an interpretation report because it uses interpretations, and we'll show that here in just a minute. The folder it is assigned to is any of those particular folders. You make your choice as to where you feel it's most appropriate to assign it. Your NASAS group is your default NASAS group. These reports have ownership just as NASAS does. And then the status of that particular report identifies when it was approved and when the last time it was updated. That's the general tab. The usage tab, you'll notice that this is a national report. It is checked. I do not wish to exclude this from the web soil survey, so that's unchecked. And then this currently has states not using. So there's a national report, and there are some states that are not using this report. And so Alaska, California, and I'm pretty sure Ohio are down there on that list. And then here's the categories that we would like this report to appear in. The cropland is not checked, but the forestland is. The report is not touched in an interpretation. That is the beauty of this. You do not have to know scripting to be able to write this particular report. And I'll show you how to do that here in just a few minutes. Then you have the documentation. Every single interpretation that's posted up to this web soil survey has to have documentation, the metadata on that particular interpretation. In addition to that, that documentation has to go through a technical edit through the regional office, and also an English edit through the regional office, because that's where the English editors are. Please do not click on the certification on these until you've had a technical edit on the interpretation and an English edit on the documentation, because we really do not want to basically put trash up on web soil survey. We want to make sure it's been peer reviewed and it is a suitable information for us providing to the public. Now, the beauty of the interpretations report. You'll notice that we've got 3 sequence numbers here, 1, 2, and 3, and we have 3 interpretations that we're using in this particular report. This is the only thing that's changed on these reports. I'm going to show that to you here in a minute. And then you have the title, the column title, that's going to appear in the report. And it will be different from the interpretation that's stored in the Soil Data Mart. So keep that in mind. And then last but not least, we have edit notes, something that's new to this release. We have the capability of coming in here, and every time we touch this report, we have the capability of documenting what we did. So that gives you an overview of the actual interpretation report. Now then, let's do some modification on here. I happen to know that Connecticut has a ground source heat pump. So we're going to create a new report. Oops. And, oh, I guess I should have been watching where I was at. So, once again, we'll come in here and we'll type in ground source. And this is a Connecticut report, and because it's a Connecticut report, not a national report, this thing is going to have a CT at the end. we're going to leave it in building site development. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it as new. Remember the interpretations? Here were the 3 interpretations. But now we're creating a ground source heat pump. We're going to save this as new. And the report has been saved. And lo and behold, there is the actual report. Ground source heat pumps, Connecticut. And then the only thing I have to do is come over here to interpretations and create a new interpretation. Notice that the interpreters are gone from this one. And I'm going to have rule sequence number 1. And I'm going to select the actual NASA's rules. And this is a Amherst, so I'm going to come down here to 12. And I believe this is a closed loop interpretation that we're going to be using. There are some limitations on this site. You'll notice here that you can only see partial. There's no scroll bar on the bottom to scroll from right to left or left to right. And unfortunately, that's one of the items that will have to be corrected in the next release of this software. But it is on the list to correct. And the capability of being able to shrink the size of the particular fields. So here's my closed loop horizontal. And I'm going to put in here geothermal heat pump. And I didn't point this out to you earlier, but you'll notice that everything is in sentence case on the rule titles. And please keep that in mind when you're dealing with these. And so the documentation now has to be modified. And there must be documentation somewhere for that particular Connecticut interpretation. And that will then come in here and replace the information that's available in this one right now. There are some things that you need to worry about. This is XML coding. This particular section of the documentation is set. There are some things in here that you'll notice they've got paragraphs and italics. All of this information is regular HTML coding that you can very easily pick up on. So the biggest and most important thing is making sure we got a good technical and English edit on this documentation. And then I could run this, but unfortunately I'm running the Connecticut stored interpretation on Pennsylvania data, and I'm not going to get any results. So there's nothing to touch on the reports. The usage now will change from a national report, and you'll notice that this now changes from states not using to states using. And I'll click off California and Alaska. I'll click on Connecticut, and I'm pretty sure Ohio is down here somewhere. I clicked on. So now I have changed this in a matter of a few minutes from a national dwellings and small commercial buildings report to a ground source heat pump for Connecticut. And that's it. Now I can come in here and save this, and remember, every time you leave this particular editor window, you always save. And it now is appearing. This will say requests for certification, and then when you click on that request for certification, it'll come to me, and then I'll have to review this and make sure that it's appropriate for up on Web Soil Survey. That is, in essence, the interpretation report. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to delete this report. I'm going to show you that the report's deleted and it is now gone on the left hand side. So it's not that difficult to come in here and maintain these particular sites. Next thing I want to cover is the soil physical properties reports. Then I'm going to close out after I get done talking about the actual reports themselves. So I'm going to click on the engineering properties, and the reason why I'm doing this is because this is an actual report where you have to come in here and know scripting to identify the literal columns that appears. So I can run this particular one, and I can start this up, and here is that particular report. Now this is not an interpretations report where you can just copy and paste. This one is actually tailored to work for the sole properties that I want on this particular list of on this particular report. So in this one, you are going to have to find somebody to assist you in writing the scripting, or you'll have to know how to script it yourself. And there are several of us out there that know how to write the scripting for these particular reports, and you can be able to tag one of them to assist you in developing. And then once again, it has the same usage. This is a national report. You'll click off national. You'll go ahead and identify which state you're using. As expected, the engineering properties will have a state code at the end. If it is not a state coded, a national report, it'll be a state coded report. And you'll notice that on the Minnesota one, the national report is turned off, and the state using the report is Minnesota. Same with documentation. You'll have to have the documentation reviewed by the editor. Make sure that you explain fully what the soil properties are that are being used in your report. Now, just most recently, and to wrap up this discussion on reports and to end this video, you'll notice that we have map unit description reports. And up until recently, we've been reluctant, but now that you guys are being able to write your own interpretation or your own list of reports, you now have the capability of coming in here and tailoring that particular report for your own needs. And so here's the map unit description report for California, and you'll notice that this report is now ready for approval or denial. It also has, or should have, documentation to support the documentation for that particular report. So here's the report, and this is a very complicated report, and feel free to edit as you see fit. And then we can run this particular report, and you can see the way it differs. So this also tells you if there's an error in the report. So you can see that this report is not ready for prime time. And then I can click over to Minnesota, and I can run this one. And it also is not ready for prime time. So you can see the capabilities are available to you in the report manager. I'm going to make another video on the rules. But you have a quick, easy method of being able to develop the interpretation reports. All you got to do is create a new copy of it and then change the interpretations to fit what you need for that particular report. Include the documentation. Make sure the English editor reviews the documentation. And it's always good to have somebody review the interpretation so that you have a technical review. And then anything that is a scripted report, for example, the map unit description report, you can come in here and edit to your heart's desire, fix the report the way you want it to look, and then, as always, it's no longer a national report, it'll be one of the state reports. So that's all I have to fill you in on the reports. This will be the end of this video, and then I will create another video on the rules. So I hope this helps you out. Goodbye for now.